What's up and welcome back to another video. My name is Miles Away. Now today I've got a very interesting pedal video for you, one that you might not typically associate with synthesizers, but one that I want to show you why it could be your next secret weapon if you like to make ambient music. The pedal today we're going to be going over is the brand new Walrus Monumental Stereo Harmonic Tremolo. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thanks as always to Walrus for sending over the pedal early. And if you do like this video, click like, subscribe, and let's get started. Now, what is a harmonic tremolo and how does it differ from a regular tremolo? Well, that and many more questions will be answered, but first I want to tell you a quick story about one of my favorite instruments, the Fender Rhodes. Invented by Harold Rhodes in the late 1950s, partnering with Fender, the Rhodes piano is one of the most iconic instruments ever created. When you think of a Fender Rhodes, you probably think of this sound. Now that effect, called the Suitcase vibrato, is probably one of the most signature and, in my opinion, sought after electric piano sounds ever. Now, Fender Rhodes created that ideal sound by basically trying to emulate a rotating speaker cabinet, which in reality is just a stereo tremolo. Now that sound is so iconic on so many records that it is just wonderful to be able to recreate it with this. And as soon as I first got this pedal, the first thing I wanted to test out is, can it do the Fender Rhodes Suitcase vibrato sound? And yes, it absolutely can. Now, bonus points for any of you guys who recognize what video game soundtrack that is from. It's one of my all-time favorites, but hopefully that demo goes to show just what is typically the classic stereo tremolo sound to use on keyboards. But if you're interested in learning how I like to use tremolo and why I think the Monumental is such an amazing pedal, then keep watching, because I'm going to show you something you probably haven't heard, which is why stereo tremolo is the absolute secret weapon for ambient music. Now, like I mentioned, Monumental is not just a standard tremolo, but it can do harmonic tremolo as well. What harmonic tremolo is essentially splitting up the high frequency band and the low frequency band and alternating between which one pans left and right. It creates a really, really lush tapestry of sound that we'll check out more when I go through the full controls of the pedal. All right, well, here is the Monumental Harmonic Stereo Tremolo. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, I'm gonna be doing a bit of a different walkthrough of this pedal than what you'd normally expect from a tremolo pedal. And that is showing you how powerful a pedal like this can be for ambient music. So here's our sound that we're gonna use. It's a really nice pad on the third wave, but it is fully mono. And I want to use this sound to show you just how amazing of a texture and stereo spread information you can create with something like the Monumental. Behind it, right now it's disabled, but I do have the Walrus slower, which I'll add in some reverb once we've designed a nice sound and gone through the features of the Monumental. All right, so let's enable the pedal and play a sequence. So right off the bat, this is probably the tremolo sound you're used to. We can change our wave shapes. Square wave. Ramp down. Ramp up. Hill. Random. And of course, just classic sine, which we'll use for a lot of this video. I really like just classic sine wave tremolo for ambient sounds because it is just the smoothest and the easiest to work with. So we've got our rate control here. Can go nice and fast. Underneath, we have our subdivisions. This is more useful if you're doing something rhythmic, which we're not going to do today, but basically we can go faster or slower relative to the tempo we tap in, right? So we're going to keep it on the furthest to the left, the quarter note, because that's what's going to allow us to do these amazing slow stereo movements. So depth knob, pretty straightforward. If we want a more subtle effect, or fully tremolo-ified. I don't know if that's a word. As you can see, it does fully disable the signal in this mode. So if you want something more subtle, maybe put it to about half. But with the smoother wave shapes, the way they've tuned it is really, really nice. So it almost barely turns off, but it does. So that's enough of the basic features. What makes Monumental special? Well, the first one is this pan knob right here. Listen to what's happening to our signal. We have this beautiful stereo panning effect. That just sounds amazing. I'm gonna hit this with some reverb before we move on, just to show you how incredible this sounds for pads. Gorgeous. Okay, let's turn off the reverb for now. So that is all being done on the standard tremolo. But what makes Monumental so special, and I'm going to take off the pan for just a moment here, is the fact that we get essentially 3 types of tremolo. We get standard, harmonic, which I'll explain in a second, and then a mix of both. And that's controlled by this knob right here. So listen carefully as we turn it all the way to the right. We're getting harmonic tremolo, which is basically where the high frequencies and the low frequencies move independently. We offset the phase with them. And this creates a really, really interesting swirling effect without actually ever taking away the volume fully. So listen, we're at full depth here. So theoretically, this is easiest to hear on a square wave. Let's wait for the sequence here. You hear that? It's creating this really beautiful pattern where the sound never fully cuts out, but at the same time we're getting this beautiful motion because the high frequencies and low frequencies are switching places. One turns off while the other turns on. And the magic of this harmonic tremolo mode is when you bring in, of course, that stereo pan. So now we're almost getting like this really interesting sequence across the stereo spectrum. If I turn it to sine wave again, listen to that swirling. Let's bring back in our reverb. And remember, we're at full depth right now, so this pedal has just one massive sweet spot as far as I'm concerned. Let's try some of the other wave shapes. The hill one is really nice on harmonic tremolo mode. Oh, I could do that all day. But one final mode to go through, which is, in my opinion, the secret weapon of this pedal, is when you mix the two together. So I'm gonna go back to a pretty slow rate and go back to a square wave, because again, it's easiest to hear it on square. So again, if we remember, all the way to the right is harmonic, all the way to the left is just standard, and in the middle, you can hear we have an equal mix of both. And this is a variable knob, right? So if you want mostly harmonic with a little bit of regular, or vice versa, you can do that. But what's so cool about this is it creates even more movement once we add in the pan and the stereo spectrum. Listen to that. If we go to random, the sound becomes alive. With these slower rates on both mode, in my opinion, it can turn any mono signal. And remember, this is a fully mono signal. If I bypass this, enable it, listen to that stereo intrigue. This is just a secret weapon for pads. Beautiful. One thing to note as well, if you find that it's killing too much of your volume, we have this really nice clean boost knob top left, so we can really crank it up. That can also help if you're mixing in some reverb like I am, and you want to maintain a nice powerful sound. Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with some pros and cons, as well as who I think this pedal is for. Well, for sure, this is a great option if you're a gigging musician, if you're a guitar player, but if you're a keyboard player like me, then I would highly recommend this pedal if you want to use it for the application I mentioned, if you love ambient lush pads and soundscapes. It really never gets old throwing a mono pad or a mono lead through this and watching it swirl around, mixing between standard and harmonic tremolo. It just sounds that good. Chef's kiss. However, my one con is worth mentioning. There is no MIDI on this pedal. As far as I understand, there's no way to do this without some crazy workaround. That's just the end of the day, one small con. And for me, I like using this for ambient anyway, but I did want to mention that for anybody who's thinking of using it as a replacement for a MIDI clocked tremolo pedal. That's pretty much it. I truly think if you like ambient music, this could be a really cool secret weapon, as I don't hear people talking about tremolos, stereo tremolo pedals nearly as much as delay or reverb. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the tracks, and I will see you in the next one.